Good day to you, folks, and welcome to TADTalk. Special episode of TADTalk, at least it's special for me. We're doing a little bit of a crossover episode with my own podcast, Right Brain Realism. I'm your host of that show, Austin Morris. I also happen to be a TAD act, a proud TAD act. And so, for those of you who are familiar with TADTalk, or any talk show really, usually the familiar face is in this chair, and the guest is in that chair, but we thought we'd switch it up since I was in town, and we put the familiar face over there so we can kind of switch it up a little bit today and maybe dig into our guest today, Nick Davies. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you doing, man?
Not bad at all. So good to be here with you. Thank you for asking me to do this. This is a fun chair to sit on. I'm digging the desk, got the legs crossed and everything. I feel like I'm doing it.
My dad never lets me sit in it, so I thought, I might as well just keep my
Yeah, you're more comfortable over there anyway, so that's great. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Nick, obviously you're actually a lot more comfortable with TAD Talk and the audience, and they know you more than me. So let's just get into it a little bit. You probably don't need much of an introduction. For those of you from Right Brain Realism, Nick is the son of Terry Davies. TAD stands for Terry and Ann Davies, the CEO and the CEO of the agency here. And Nick is their son. The soon-to-be EO is how you put it before, and I like that one a lot. We'll get into quite a bit about that. But on Right Brain Realism, we like to talk about the intersection of our creative and analytical selves, and that has to do with creative problem solving, because it's great to have an idea, but if you don't have a plan to put it in place, then it's not really worth much. And also, what's the quote? If you keep doing the same thing and expect a different result, this is the definition of insanity. So sometimes you have to think outside the box, but rein it in, and that's kind of the idea behind right-brained realism. And I have said this to other people off camera as well, that I think TAD has been an incredible example of that. We've been handed a year from
hell, you could say.
Yeah, from hell. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I was like, oh yeah, this isn't my show. I don't know how you guys handle it. But we've been handed a year that no one expected. That's for absolute certainty. And you guys have just kind of rolled with it. For those of you who don't know, TAD hosts a weekly webinar specifically for people in and around the industry that really kind of talk about where we are and where we're going. They do a great job of keeping it, not political, nothing, just here's some facts. Here's a little bit of conjecture, but they're very clear when it's conjecture and when it's fact. It's fantastic. In fact, you've invited not just TAD's acts and agents in around the world, pretty much anyone in the industry you've opened that up to, yeah?
Yeah, it's one of those things. Obviously, within our circles, our acts, we want them to come on, and we definitely want them to know that we are doing our best to bring it back. When you're in this industry, no matter who you are, really don't have much power over what's happening. No power over what's happening, obviously. No one does, but it's one of those things, we just try to inspire a little hope into people that, we're still here. We're doing our best to stick around, and at some point we are going to come back. So don't lose your creative juices. If we ever need your creativity in this world, it's right now, because there's not much of it to go around. People are losing their inspiration, and you can't be one of those people.
Yeah, you can only look at, no matter how much you love your family and your dog and your kitchen, and you can only look at it for so long before you're like, I know everything about this.
I've forgotten what outside looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another part of the great fun part of the webinar that you do and of TAD Talk here is that a lot of the audience on that are performers who are out of work, and I think it's safe to say that a lot of us in this industry thrive on being in a crowd and being able to talk and just being around, quote unquote, our people. We travel a lot with other artists and stuff, and just being able to have that interaction is fantastic. So we'll put a link in the show notes for Right Brain Realism, and of course with TAD on their Facebook page. By the way, follow TAD Management's Facebook page if you haven't already. And they talk a lot about that, and then put the webinar links out for everybody there as well. You actually touched on something really fantastic. This is a perfect segue. One of the things that you've pivoted to and said, you know what, I've got this time now, let's do this. Pretty early on in COVID, if I'm not mistaken, you released a song called Earth Without Art. And for anybody who's seen the Instagram post, the joke there, the play on words
Yeah.
there, as earth without art is
Eh.
That's all it is. And it is fun, but it's at least in our belief, that's absolutely true. Earth without art is just
Yeah.
yeah, like what do we do? Maybe that's just how we feel. But the song is fantastic. Make sure you download it, listen to it, put it on YouTube. But talk to me a little bit about just where it came from and why that's what you wanted to write.
Well, it really was me scrolling through Facebook and finding that exact quote. And
Yeah.
at first, it was going to be a parody, funny song. And I was trying to figure out what rhymed with eh. and I wasn't really doing too well. But it got to a point where I started writing the lyrics and it became more deep than it was. And it was more real. And I started imagining in my head, like, what would life be? What would the world be if artists just decided to give it up? If COVID is what took over and got rid of all the arts in the world, whether it's music or painting, drawing, any form of art. And it's that was not a fun thing to imagine in my own mind. So the song became kind of a mixture of me imagining that world, but also kind of an inspirational message to all the artists out there who might be thinking, it might be time to give this up. A lot of kids are looking at kids who love music and are learning piano or guitar or how to sing, and they're looking at our industry right now and thinking, there's no point in me keeping going with this. I'm not going to be able to make a living. I'm going to get to 20, 30 years old and have to find a new career, because that's what a lot of us have to do right now.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to be the next generation. I want kids to keep going and keep their love for music and pursuing music, even though it's on a steep decline because of this whole COVID situation.
Yeah, something I've said to young people and students and whatever for a long time is there's no such thing as job security anymore. Like, the world has changed so rapidly over the past 10, 15, 30 years that all of our jobs are in danger of being taken over by robots. So there's no such thing as job security anymore, or an industry that doesn't change. So you might as well do what you love. And then 2020 comes up, and turns out the most secure jobs in the world are a Walmart cashier and an Amazon stocker. They're not at all what we thought they were going to be. The jobs that we thought were essential aren't. And then those things that have started coming back, my quote on there's no such thing as job security, you might as well do what you love, encouraging people to go into the arts. Well, now 2020 is here, and we're the last industry that seems that, I don't want to seem defensive about it or anything, but just for whatever reason, it's an industry that has been put on hold longer than others. And in many ways, it kind of seems forgotten. I mean, how many conversations have you had in the past year with other artists? Like, do they even want us back? They've got to be watching all the stuff on Netflix. So as you imagine that world, where did that take you? What do you see there?
Well, it's one of those things when I think of the exact same thing, and I think people look at music and the arts as, for most people who don't pursue it as a career, it is just that. It's just a hobby. It's something fun, and
which is not bad at all.
Is not bad.
Something if that's majorly said for that.
Exactly. If you want to pursue it as a hobby, I mean, music, is
cathartic,
just exactly. It's your own personal diary that you can just like spew all your feelings into, and if you want to just do that as a hobby, more power
incredibly
to you.
healthy. Yeah.
But a lot of people see it, for us, who do it as a living, as more of a, you should keep that as a back pocket idea, and you should go and pursue something else. Mm-hmm. And I'm in no way are we as important as like the front line who are going on right now, like the doctors and like soldiers and like all these people who risk so much more. But music and the arts have really helped a lot of people, more than a lot of people know. So, I know that my life has been saved a few times because of music, and I'm sure I'm not the only person watching or in the world who can say that. It's whether it's the music or the lyrics or just the person themselves looking into their lives and what they've been through. And that's why we get so upset when people like all these big musicians pass, which we just had a big one very recently, and it affected so many people, and that's what the arts does to people. And I think the arts just need to become more important in people's eyes for us to start coming back from it, because it really is, like I said, not as important as like a doctor in the room, like performing surgery.
How many of us have had the conversation with our aunts and uncles or whatever, like, when are you going to get a real job? And we hate it, but right now, the conversation I continually have with other artists is we know that doctors and nurses and food delivery drivers and Amazon boxers or whatever they are, we understand that in this moment those are important. But that doesn't mean that what we do isn't, because what has everybody been doing this whole time? They've been at home watching things on Netflix made by artists, actors, composers, writers, everything. The industry that is actually giving people something the most right now is art. And yet the live entertainment industry is something that's been a little forgotten. So I didn't want to turn this into a plea for everybody, but I think you said it best. It's just something that we need to just kind of remember, like, oh yeah, this is important. Because we are getting closer and closer. Every Zoom concert I saw, at first it was cool, it was innovative, we're doing Zoom concerts. And now the more and more I see, it's like, okay, but when can we actually do this live again? Yeah. Obviously safely and with everyone's health in mind, and obviously, but that's, I think, what we want to miss the most.
And if any artists are watching this right now, at no means am I saying, don't pursue anything else. Like, obviously money is money.
Yeah.
you got to make it. You got to keep it sustainable. So especially right now, if you need to go out and do something else, do it, to stay afloat. But once it starts coming back, don't lose it. Don't just throw in the towel because this year happened.
Yeah.
Just keep going with it. Do what you need to do now, but once it comes back, please keep pursuing the career that you've been doing for God knows how many years.
And you know what? Something I preach to everybody. I think no matter what your job is, like I said, there's no such thing as job security in any industry. So I preach the art of a good side hustle that you enjoy, that maybe you'll be able to monetize, but really it just occupies that headspace productively, because I think creativity breeds creativity. So even just having a side hustle, I think is great for everybody. But now if you're an artist, sometimes the grind of audition after audition or gig to gig, or finally the check came from that gig I did 3 months ago, but now I have to pay that. Just that is such a 100% of your time grind that this has actually been kind of a nice step back for a lot of artists to build a side hustle that they can take with them once they start performing again. So you have that kind of extra consistent income and stuff. But you're right, when this comes back and when we're able to perform again, I hope that you all join us and you haven't thrown in the towel for good. Even if you're building something now, oh man, I think we can't wait to get back. Wonderful. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back after that, and we'll have a lighter side to this episode. It was nice to be a little deep. We'll let it out. Take a deep breath.
I'm a happy person, I promise.
Yeah, we're happy. Trigger warning on the you don't have a job for 9 months on the first half of that episode. We'll see you after the break.
As well as anyone could, when life deprives them of everything good. I'm now a shadow of where I once stood, and the sunset is all I see. To have a dream is to have true love's flame, and when it dies, you know it hurts just the same. It would be easier to have someone to blame, even if it was me. But it's just the world we live in, that's just the way it goes. It can be unforgiving like a thorn on a rose, and I am used to taking what anything throws, but not my trade's demise. After all, what is the Louvre without St. John or Mona Lisa? Imagine it with blank and empty walls. A
welcome back. For those of you who decided to stay with us, we're glad you're still here. We promise we'll smile more in this half of the episode. First things first, during the break, it was pointed out by multiple people in the room that you probably shouldn't play a drinking game with me saying the word fantastic on this show. It will get dangerous, and I apologize in advance. I know, I'm trying. But hey, so speaking of something that is fantastic, something else that you've done during this whole thing is you've released a cover of Rainbow Connection, which everyone loves, and it takes everyone kind of back a little bit, and it's one of those songs that puts a smile on everybody's face. And your cover is actually kind of one of my favorite versions of it.
Thank you.
So just talk a little bit about why you wanted to do that and what's that's meant to you through all of this.
Yeah, well, Rainbow Connection was honestly just a time filler more than anything, because I've been working on an album for way too long, and I put that more on hold when I decided to do Rainbow Connection. But I'm a huge Disney fan, huge Disney fan.
As most 90s kids are.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I had never seen the Muppets. And I finally saw the Muppets when I had nothing else to do. I was sitting at home just going through Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Here you go, the classic Muppet movie. And I throw it on, and there's that iconic scene with Kermit sitting there with the banjo, and it was just the lyrics in it, just like, this is a kid's movie?
Deep for a felt frog, isn't it?
Yeah. So I just instantly fell in love with it, and I never try to cover something that I think is just musically pristine. Like, I would never go for Bohemian Rhapsody and say, let's just try.
Yeah, there's some songs you just don't cover. Yeah.
And for the most part, Kermit's is just brilliant.
Perfect. Yeah.
But when he gets to the bottom of it, it's a banjo, it's a brushes, a little bass, and a voice, and that's about it. And I wanted to kind of put my own spin on it, not enhance it, because I don't think the original can be enhanced. It's amazing. But I recently, a couple of years ago, became a huge fan of a band called Jellyfish, who have a very big inspiration. They draw inspiration from Queen and the Beach Boys and the Beatles, and they mash all that together into this amazing power pop group. And so I found, as I was kind of listening to it in my head, only you and other artists would know what that's like, hearing the arrangement before it's recorded.
And then trying to explain what's in your head to somebody else.
Exactly,
So yeah. It's like a weird conversation to have.
But I heard sections of that song that could become very jellyfish-ized. And
Webster's,
that's a word. You can search
Write
that
that
up.
one down.
Yeah. There's a dash in there too. Don't forget that. It's important. But that's really what I wanted to do with it, because up until that point, I had never, other than Earth Without Art, tried to record something jellyfish-wise. That sounded like that Jellyfish vibe. I've always been trying to take inspiration from Billy Joel and the Beatles and stuff like that, but this was my first real dive into, can I make something sound like Jellyfish? And I think I succeeded in my own mind. Like, it sounds the way I want it to sound. So that's really where that came from. And like you said, it's a lighthearted song, and I think everyone, especially after I released this Earth Without Art, which is, hey, we're not working, I feel like I needed to say, sorry about that. Here's some nice
So Rainbow Connection was an apology. Yeah,
it was.
That's
Where
good.
we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lover, the dreamer. And answered when wished on
said something in there that I actually think is really interesting for somebody. For those of you who don't know, Nick and his dad, they do a couple great shows. Piano Man Generations. I do Elton John and Billy Joel, all these guys. And it's a fantastic show in and of itself. But this is something that's actually very interesting. For someone like yourself and like myself, I've grown up doing 50s and 60s music, doing old Rat Pack jazz, a lot of classic rock, some music theater.
And it's fantastic.
And it's so much fun. It's fantastic. Drink up. But it's hard when I try to sit down and write my own stuff. It's really hard to get and find your own thing. Like I've been singing Billy Joel for so long. Wait, what do I even sound like? What was that? Did you find that hard finding your own sound, especially like you said with Earth Without Art, which was definitely more original? Did you find that journey of wait, that's Billy Joel. Wait, that's Elton John. Where's Nick in all of this? Was that hard for you?
I think that now I'm starting to find my sound. Because like I said, I've been working on my first album for about 12 years now. I've been learning new things about recording the whole time. And as soon as I learn something new, I'm like, no, I can't release it yet. I got to go back and change something.
That's such a real thing. I've got a solo video out to plug myself again, shamelessly. That talks about that's part of right brain realism is your creativity sometimes gets out of control and you have a really nice, simple idea, and then you want to learn about it, and you want to perfect it, and then through learning about this, you learn something else, and then you're like, oh, I should do that too, and you add so much stuff into it that by the end, you're like, oh, that's too hard to do, all that, but if you bring it back, and often the original idea you had was better than the big one anyway, but I do the same thing. It's so easy to have an idea and then add so much stuff to it. So everybody write to Nick on his Instagram and Facebook and make him put his album out in the next 12 months. We're going to give him a deadline because I feel like he'll perform better under one.
I do, along those lines as well, I do think that it's so rare, whether it's nowadays or in the past, it's so rare that a new artist comes along with something you've never heard before, just something completely new.
Yeah.
And I think everyone is able to find their own voice, and most of the time your own voice is a conglomeration of other people's voices that you've gotten inspiration from. So my voice basically is a mixture of Billy Joel, the Beatles, Elton John, Bruce Hornsby, Jellyfish, and just like all of these that's just icons circling me, and just...
That's actually a really good way to think of it is because I said, oh, that's Billy, don't use it, that's Elton, don't use it, where's Nick? And you were like, why not lean in? And I think that's fantastic. Like, don't steal anything, but if who you are is an amalgamation of other artists, that's awesome. Everyone's an amalgamation of the people in our lives and grow from there. So that's very cool. One video, I don't want to spend too much time on it because I know we're trying to stay under half an hour, and most of my shows are much longer than that.
Yeah, so, you're really good at that.
I'm trying to peel back. But one thing I definitely don't want to get out of here without bringing attention to is one of my favorite things that I've seen during all of this was you did a very interesting cover of a Billy Joel song. Yeah.
Oh, are you talking about Centerfold?
I'm talking about the Centerfold.
So Centerfold was Jay Giles' band.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, but it's funny you say that, though, because I did see Billy Joel live a couple of years ago, and he did a cover of Centerfold in his show because Jay Giles had just passed a couple of days before.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Centerfold, Jay Giles' band, it's an awesome song. A lot of people don't like it, but for some reason I'm like, I love the song, and...
incredibly catchy. It will be stuck in your head for a while after you watch it.
That's for sure. But I decided to do something because one of my favorite people right now, going back to people who just created something completely new, this guy called Jacob Collier, who's out there right now, and he has like 4 Grammys. He's only released 3 albums. He's crazy, but
and at 12 years each, that's a long time.
Exactly. But he did something that I saw on Facebook because I follow all his stuff, and he did one of his own songs where he created the song that he wrote. He recreated it with only things that was around his house. So he found a rubber band and did the bass. He blew into a bottle and he made like certain tones and filled it with more water. And I just thought that was so cool. And I thought it was because he said found sound challenge. So I thought it was this thing that everyone was doing. I didn't know that Shore was contacting people specifically asking them to do it for their page. I thought it was just something that, it's a challenge
it's a
going around the
challenge.
internet. I might as well do it.
Dump a bucket of ice on your head, write a found sound song.
Exactly. But I decided to take part before I knew that I wasn't supposed to.
You had not been invited to the party.
No, sure does not know me.
Nick busts in like, here's mine.
If anyone's looking for connections, I do not have them. Too sure. But I decided to do it with Centerfold. One, because I love the song and I've always wanted to do a cover of it. But two, really, you're using ding 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 ding, and it's in a range that you're not going to need to have 25 glasses in front of you filled with different amounts of water in order to do anything you want. So I just kind of picked a semi-simplistic song that I could
But
do.
you filled it out. It was insane.
I added harmonies and stuff like that, and it turned out pretty cool, and I'm really happy about it. And the funny thing is, I did post it, and Shore did respond and say, "This was fucking awesome. Do you mind if we put it on our page?" So I was like,
Does she walk? Does she talk? Does she come complete? My homeroom angel always pulled me from my seat. She was cool like snowflakes, no one could ever stay. The memory of my angel could never cause me pain. Years go by, I'm looking through a girly magazine, and there's my homeroom angel on the pages in between. My blood runs cold, my memory has just been sold. My angel is the centerfold, my angel is the centerfold. My blood runs cold, my memory has just been sold. My angel is the centerfold. Na 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 na.
yeah.
I encourage you to check that out. Earth Without Art, obviously, a Nick Davies original. Fantastic song. It really is, honestly, like we talked, a little cathartic for anybody who's in the industry. I think you'll really identify with it. But even if you're not, it's just a great listen. So check out Earth Without Art. And then if you want to, while you're there, check out his Rainbow Connection and his Centerfold covers. They're fantastic. I know Tad and TADTalk, they often end with a set of questions here. And sometimes they're quite specific. You do some either or. You've done one that's a pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yeah.
And you're
Well, I'll let you answer first because I like
well,
you
no,
so
I'm the
far.
host.
Okay,
No,
fair enough.
Yeah, that's my show today. It's your show usually.
Yeah, I'm about to make 50% hate me. Pineapple on pizza is a definite yes. It's an absolute definite yes.
Wonderful. It is a yes for me, but only if there's like pepperoni or like a spicy chorizo or something.
Oh, I always have
to balance it out.
pepperoni. I
Yeah,
put
if it's
some
just-
sausage
if
on there.
Canadian bacon isn't spicy enough to balance the sweet. That's my opinion. Give it a shot. Anyway, that's an omen for pineapple on pizza. Like, nah.
Someone up there is disagreeing with you right
Yeah,
now.
exactly. At least the pen is. Pineapple pen, never mind. I end my shows with a couple of questions that we'll go to now. The first one I always like to ask is, if you could go back to any point in history, you had a time machine, you just get to go there, you don't get to change anything, you just get to watch, be in the moment, feel the energy of it, and be a witness to this event. Where are you going and why? And when?
I am going in that order.
Yeah.
I'm going. I don't know the exact date. I know I should, but I really don't. It's something like June 7th or July 7th, back in I think it was the 60s, early 60s, at St. Peter's Church in Liverpool, England, on the day that John Lennon met Paul McCartney for the very first time on that lawn while John Lennon was performing. That would be the moment I would like to go back and see.
That's a good one. I like that a lot. Wonderful. Well, if that time machine has a second seat, you call me.
Okay.
I'll be there. Here's one that I like a lot. What is one thing that you wish had never been invented?
Okay. One thing that I wish had never been invented. Okay. Well, this year I want to say the face mask, but I would. No, it's very needed.
Helpful.
It's needed. It's helpful.
I just wish you didn't need it.
No, I'm gonna go. This isn't really an invention so much as an idea that someone sat in a boardroom and pitched, and then somebody else said, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And I hate both of those people. Whoever decided, you know what, we should make a CD called Kids Bop.
Okay, you know what? I really thought you were gonna say like the Snuggie or something, but
I like the Snuggie.
It's Snuggie
helpful.
is underrated, y'all.
It
it's
is very
so comfy.
underrated. Kids
Bring it
Bop
back.
CDs.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Yeah, we're just gonna move on. I have nothing. I have no way. There's no way I can add to that to make it a more perfect answer. That's fantastic. What is a book that you've read that has had an impact on your life that you want to encourage other people to read?
You know, to be honest, I'm not much of a reader. If I was honest,
We can tell.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no,
I'm stumbling over my words a lot, Mr. Fantastic. But I.
You don't have to drink on that one. That was him. That was him.
But if I was honest, I'd say, green eggs and ham. But I think I'm going to go.
a good answer.
It is a really good answer. But honestly, there is a book that I read called Who Moved My Cheese? And it sounds weird. It sounds insanely strange. But it's really, I'm not going to tell you what it's about. You just have to, it's a really short story. But it's, if you're wondering how to continue along with life and figure out a way to lead people in a direction you want them to be led, or if you want to start a new business, or if you have this idea that you want to pursue and you want other people to follow you, this whole book is just one big metaphor for that.
Yeah.
And it's done in a way that it isn't like an infomercial, how-to manual, but it's kind of shaped like a children's book in a way, except it's not. It's very insightful, and I think it's really a must-read for anyone with that type of mentality.
I agree. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, I released an episode with a man named Dr. Gary Brott on Right Brain Realism, who was friends with Spencer Johnson, the author of Who Moved My Cheese, and who became the lead speaker on the book, and actually was the only guy, or the main guy, licensed to speak on the book. So he knew the book very well, and we did a whole episode on it. So check out that on Right Brain Realism, and maybe we can get Gary on this show. I actually mentioned it to him.
That'd be cool. I'd love that.
So that'll be a lot of fun. And we're about to wrap up. So first of all, thank you to everyone who's been here and watched it. Thank you for having me on TADTalk. I hope you go and find Right Brain Realism. It's on YouTube. I shoot it as a video, very much like this, only less professionally, but it's don't have the whole setup. I'm feeling good. I want a desk now. But check out Right Brain Realism on YouTube, and on Instagram we post a lot of the highlights there, and it's on whatever your favorite podcast network, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, all those. And make sure for those of you coming in from Right Brain Realism, make sure you follow the TAD Talk. We'll link the TAD webinar weekly in the show notes there, so you can get on there and really just kind of have a handle on what's going on in the world and in the industry. And I'm going to kick it to you, Nick, and we'll just let you take this episode out with the question I like to end a lot of episodes with, is obviously this year has been what this year has been. And most of that has been negative for a lot of people. But what is something that you have learned this year that when we get through and life is a little more normal, if that even exists anymore, but 10, 20, 30 years down, when you look back on 2020, what is something you've learned this year that you really want to remember, that you really want to become a part of your daily life going forward?
Family is the most important thing. There was a long obviously with the whole quarantine, there was a long stretch there where I couldn't go up to see my parents, and they live half an hour from me, which I'm very thankful for. But there was a couple months where I wasn't able to go up, which isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it's the longest really that I've ever not been up to my parents' house and seen them. And it's really taught me, like, don't take anything for granted. You know, we're all getting older, and you need to take as much time with the people you love as humanly possible. And, you know, we can talk about music and jobs and money and everything all day, but, you know, if you don't have family, I mean, you don't have anything. So
yeah,
that's what I've learned. And if I can live in the same house with my fiance and us not kill each other this whole time, we can get through anything.
Feeling very good about the strength of your future marriage.
We can get through anything.
Yeah, this year has really brought into focus a lot of what is and should be most important to us all going forward, and I hope that we keep those things in mind. Well, thanks for joining us, folks. From Nick Davies, I'm Austin Morris. From Right Brain Realism and TADTalk, have a great day, folks, and let's try to be a little better tomorrow than we are today. Cheers.
Have a good one, guys.